Well, as you have heard, I'm an old friend of Nepal. I was the SATA SDC director in the 1970s, being involved in development work. Since that time, I have come back almost every year, partly on business, on official work, partly privately. I have a Nepali adoptive daughter, which also keeps me linked to Nepal. And the more often I came, I went deeper and deeper into the study of Buddhism, not only in Nepal, but in India as well. And Tibetan Buddhism, I was very close because of the Tibetan monastery in Switzerland. It's too short, too long. I think there are three things. One is very personal. I have friends here. An adoptive daughter of mine comes from here. Her sister, by the way, was here in the audience today, and she was very happy. The second reason is I'm an outdoor man. I love to trek. I love to walk in my own country. So Nepal appealed to me for its nature, for the mountains. And the third, perhaps the most important, is that I found Hinduism and Buddhism here in a very accessible way. Friends who explained me literature that I could read. So it was really the place where I could do research. It was here in Nepal because when I was living here in the 1970s, Switzerland, together with the Nepal government, was looking after many Tibetan refugees. So as the coordinator of the Swiss program, I was very much involved with Tibetans at that time and with the representative of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. That's where my interest started. Then for many years I had no contact. When I was retired, almost 20 years back, I was asked whether I would take the chairmanship of the trust that supports that Tibetan monastery in Switzerland. And I said yes. And that was the starting point over the last 20 years, you could say, of real close dealing with Tibetans, studying Tibetan works, being together with Tibetans. That's where it all started. It's difficult for me to exactly respond to that question because I am myself not a Buddhist. I belong to those people who think, as I said before, we must dialogue, we must learn from each other. And the trust that supports that monastery is not made up of Buddhists. I was brought up as a Christian, others were brought up in different ways. So I have not this religious background, and I have personally no relationship with Swiss Buddhists. I only have contact with Tibetan Buddhists living in Switzerland. There are not many Swiss Buddhists, a small minority. But the Tibetan community in our country has increased in the meantime to about 10,000. So that's where I'm dealing with Buddhist reality. Of course, I see it mostly through architecture, through all the beautiful artwork. Then I encounter it in contact with my friends, who some of them are Buddhists, others are Hindu. And I find Buddhism here very much close to the earth and close to life. Not dogmatic, not high theory. And I like that. And I through those very human contacts to Buddhists here, that was a door for learning for me. Well, I'm a researcher and a scientist in religions in general. I have also written a book about Hindu sacred thread ceremony, so I'm not exclusively geared towards Buddhism. But why Buddhism in this case? As the chairman of the trust of the monastery in Switzerland, I was once asked whether I could give a talk on the Astamangala. And I said, yeah, of course I do that, that's an easy task. And started studying. And then I realized that's not at all an easy task. That's a vast field. And my talk that I gave covered just 3 of the 8. And so I said, okay, next year I do another 3. And I continued studying, and then I realized, no, 1 talk, 2 talks, 3 talks will never be sufficient. I must go deeper. And so over a period of about 5 to 6 years, the book developed. And then the 50th anniversary of the Gompa came up, and we thought that would be the subject for the memorial book of the 50th anniversary. Then I intensified my studies, and so the book came out. The book has 2 parts. In the first part, Tibetan people speak about the Astamangala, what they mean for them. In the second part, I write this cultural history on each one of the Astamangala, drawing from sources all over the world. And in conclusion, as I have said before in my presentation, I ask myself now, what is the red thread that goes through all of them, that binds them together, the common meaning? And my answer that I came to was, they are all pointers to the greater life, of which Mr. Satya Mohan Joshi was speaking, the Amitabh, the greater life which has greater meaning than just earning money and being successful in business, greater in an inner sense. Every one of the Astamangala is a pointer to that and exemplifies what it means, greater life. Yeah, the most salient difference is that 7 of the 8 Astamangala are the same among Newars and in Tibet. But the 8th is different, where the Tibetans venerate the wheel, Newars venerate the chowries, the fly whisks as they are called. That's a difference. But in the understanding of the Astamangala, I don't see much difference. I think that's basically the same, probably common to the whole of Mahayana Buddhism. Yeah, one relationship between Buddhist philosophy and one of the 8 symbols is the endless knot. The endless knot which really links everything with everything. That corresponds to the Buddhist philosophical concept of Tendrel, which says nothing is independent. Nothing as such is independent of everything else. Everything, every human being, this table, this seat, your shoes, depends on so many other things. Everything is linked with everything else. That idea, the philosophical idea, is visualized also in the endless knot, where every point is linked with every other point. You see, the world today really has one single greatest problem ahead, that is our climate. If we cannot find solutions for that, life on this earth will be destroyed within a few thousand years. Now, that needs technical means, that needs political means, but above all, it needs the will of people to cooperate. Because if we continue to strive, and I know better than you, and you are a silly boy, and I must now command, and why do you do this, and I do it differently, then we are not going to solve the problem, in spite of the technical solutions that are available. So this inner education that we must go through, which is exemplified by the Astamangala, is as important as the technical solutions. Otherwise, the world climate crisis will not be solved. That is my personal conviction. Buddhism, as I understand it, and as I have learned from the Dalai Lama, is really a big contribution to encourage people to go on an inward journey, perhaps more than any other religion. Other religions do that also, but not as strongly and not as convincingly as Buddhism. Go on an inner journey while doing your outer duties, but go on an inner journey. If that message is heard and spread in the world, that's an immense contribution that Buddhism can do to this world.